Good morning, friends. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday. Sorry that I haven't been on in a couple days. My middle child was home because he sat next to somebody at lunch that has COVID. Yeah. So he's here until next Tuesday. Just home. Yeah. And then this morning was my only day to sleep in because the kids are with their dad. And the school called because my youngest child also sits by somebody at lunch that has COVID. So now he's home. Yeah, it's been a really interesting week in our house. So showered, ready to go, not dry my hair clearly. And we are going to jump in and read for a little bit because we are really behind. I'm so sorry. Again, that's why this thing is called Imperfect Obedience, because I am not the perfect person to be doing this. I have a hard time doing it every day. And the stories that we're reading right now are crazy, so I really want to be in it. It's just that we've had a lot going on. So right now we're in Judges. We're on chapter 10, and we're supposed to read until chapter, I can't even talk. We're supposed to read until chapter 18, but I'm not so sure that we're going to get all the way. So we're going to try to read as far as we can and see how far that is, and then we'll just pick up where we left off tomorrow. So if you want to read with me, we're in Judges chapter 10. If you just want to listen to me read to you, we can do that too, because I'm going to jump on in. I'm leaving in a little bit, so as soon as my husband opens the door and says, it's time to go, we're going to stop. So that's what we're going to do. All right, prepare yourself, because I looked ahead and some of these stories are crazy. Okay. After Abimelech's death, Tola, the son of Puah and the descendant of Dodo, no, it literally says Dodo, came to rescue Israel. He was from the tribe of Issachar, but lived in the town of Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim. He was Israel's judge for 23 years, and when he died, he was buried in Shamir. After Tola died, a man from Gilead named Jair judged Israel for 22 years. His 30 sons rode around on 30 donkeys. Well, that's good. They each had their own. And they owned 30 towns in the land of Gilead, which are still called the towns of Jair. When Jair died, he was buried in Kaman. Isn't that interesting? Why is that in there? They decided that they should tell you that a man named Jair had 22 years. He had 30 sons on 30 donkeys and on 30 towns. That's it. That's all we ever hear about Jair. I mean, he made it in there. Good morning. Okay. Again, the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. They worshipped images of Baal and Ashtoreth, the gods of Aram, Sidon, Moab, Ammon, and Philistia. Not only this, but they abandoned the Lord and no longer served him at all. So the Lord burned with anger against Israel, and he handed them over to the Philistines and the Ammonites, who began to oppress them that year. For 18 years they oppressed all the Israelites east of the Jordan River in the land of the Amorites, that is, in Gilead. The Ammonites also crossed to the west side of the Jordan and attacked Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. The Israelites were in great distress, and finally they cried out to the Lord, saying, "We've sinned against you because we abandoned you as our God and served the images of Baal." The Lord replied, "Did I not rescue you from the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Ammonites, and the Philistines, the Sidonians, the Amalekites, and the Moabites? When they oppressed you, you cried out to me, and I rescued you. Yet you have abandoned me and served other gods, so I will not rescue you anymore. Go and cry out to the gods you have chosen, and let them rescue you in your hour of distress." But the Israelites pleaded with the Lord and said, "We've sinned. Punish us as you see fit, only rescue us today from our enemies." Then the Israelites put aside the foreign gods and served the Lord, and he was grieved by their misery. At that time the armies of Ammon had gathered for war and were camped in Gilead, preparing to attack Israel's army at Mizpah. The leaders of Gilead said to each other, "Whoever attacks the Ammonites first will become ruler over all the people of Gilead." Isn't that crazy, though? These people did not listen. Did you hear how many people he rescued them from? And all they ever do is complain. He took them out of Egypt. This isn't good enough. We want food. They gave him food. And then they were like, well, this isn't good enough. We want meat. Well, then, how mean they were to Moses all the time. He literally has rescued them from people after people after people. And finally he was like, I'm not going to rescue you anymore. You guys are not listening to me. And they said, oh, no, we'll listen. And he was still grieved by their misery. That's interesting to me. I wasn't that hungry, so I just ate a kid's meal at McDonald's, and his mother was furious. Sorry, that was funny. I like jokes. Anyway, all right, chapter 11. We were talking about how it's cool that God still is grieved by our misery, even when we have not listened over and over and over and over and over again. Now, Japheth of Gilead was a great warrior, and he was the son of Gilead, but his mother was a prostitute. Okay. So he's a great warrior, the son of Gilead. So Gilead was a place, because it says that Tola was a man from Gilead. So Gilead was a place. Okay. Gilead's wife also had several sons, and when these half-brothers grew up, they chased Japheth off of the land. You will not get any of our father's inheritance, they said, for you're the son of a prostitute. So Japheth fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Soon he had a large band of rebels following him, because he's a great warrior. At about this time, the Ammonites began their war against Israel. When the Ammonites attacked, the leaders of Gilead sent for Japheth in the land of Tob. They said, "Come be our commander, help us fight the Ammonites." But Japheth, I can't say that name, said to them, "Aren't you the ones who hated me and drove me from my father's house? Why do you come to me now when you're in trouble?" "Because we need you," they replied. "If you will lead us in battle against the Ammonites, we'll make you ruler over all the people of Gilead." Japheth said, "But if I come with you and the Lord gives me victory over the Ammonites, will you really make me ruler over all the people?" "The Lord is our witness," the leaders replied. "We promise to do whatever you say." So Japheth went with the leaders of Gilead, and he became their ruler and commander of the army. At Mizpah, in the presence of the Lord, Japheth repeated what he had said to the leaders. Then Japheth sent messages to the king of Ammon, demanding to know why Israel was being attacked. The king of Ammon answered Japheth's messages, "And when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they stole my land from the Arnon River to the Jabbok River, all the way to the Jordan. Now then, give back the land peaceably." Japheth, that's what it says. Japheth. Oh no, just Jephthah. We're going to go with Jephthah. I'm so sorry. I cannot say this name. Sent this message back. This is what Jephthah says. "Israel did not steal any land from Moab or Ammon. When the people of Israel arrived at Kadesh on their journey from Egypt, after crossing the Red Sea, they sent messengers to the king of Edom asking for permission to pass through his land, but their request was denied. Then they asked the king of Moab for similar permission, and he wouldn't let them pass through either. So the people of Israel stayed in Kadesh. Finally, they went around Edom and Moab through the wilderness and traveled along Moab's eastern border and camped on the other side of the Arnon River. They never once crossed the Arnon River into Moab. Then Israel sent messengers to King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled from Heshbon, asking for permission to cross through his land to get to their destination. But King Sihon didn't trust Israel to pass through his land. Instead, he mobilized his army at Jahaz and attacked them. But the Lord, the God of Israel, gave his people victory over King Sihon, so Israel took control of all the land of the Amorites who lived in that region, from the Arnon River to the Jabbok River and to the wilderness of the Jordan. Just call him Jeff. I should, seriously. Okay. So you see, it was the Lord, the God of Israel, who took away the land of the Amorites and gave it to Israel. Why then should we give it to you? You keep whatever your God Chemosh gives you. I've never heard of that God. Chemosh. It's like Cheetos. And we will keep whatever the Lord our God gives us. Are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab? Didn't he try to make a case against Israel for the disputed land? And did he go to war? No, of course not. But now after 300 years you make an issue of this. Israel has been living here all this time, spread across the land from Heshbon to Aroer and all the lands around the Arnon River. Why have you made no effort to recover it before now? I have not sinned against you. Rather, you have wronged me by attacking me. Let the Lord who is judge decide today which one of us is right, Israel or Ammon. But the king of Ammon paid no attention to Jeph's message. At that time the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jeph, and he went through the land of Gilead and Manasseh, including Mizpah and Gilead, and led an army against the Ammonites. And he made a vow to the Lord, and said, "If you give me victory over the Ammonites, I will give the Lord the first thing coming out of my house to greet me when I return in triumph, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering." Whoa, the first thing coming out of my house. I don't think the goats, the rams, the chickens, the doves, or any of those things live in his house, so I'm pretty sure you might be talking about a family member. Not okay. So he led his army against the Ammonites, and the Lord gave him victory. He thoroughly defeated the Ammonites from Aroer to an area near Minnith, 20 towns away, as far as Abel-keramim. Thus Israel subdued the Ammonites. When Jeph returned home to Mizpah, his daughter, his only child, ran out to meet him. Oh, that just gave me chills. I am not a fan. Playing on a tambourine and dancing for joy. When he saw her, he tore his clothes in anguish. "My daughter," he cried out, "my heart is breaking. What a tragedy that you came out to greet me, for I have made a vow to the Lord and cannot take it back." And she said, "Father, you made a promise to the Lord. You must do to me what you have promised, for the Lord has given you a great victory over your enemies, the Ammonites." But first let me go up and roam in the hills and weep with my friends for 2 months because I will die a virgin. No, it seriously says that. It seriously says that. You may go, he said, and he let her go away for 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never have children. When she returned home, her father kept his vow, and she died a virgin. So it has become a custom in Israel for a young Israelite woman to go away for 4 days each year to lament the fate of Japheth's daughter. Okay, hold on. I have such problems with this. First of all, wow, that daughter. Like, yes, you should do it. If he had sent me away to the hill country, I would have run. I'm just saying. I would not have come back knowing that my dad was going to kill me. Sorry, I would have run away. Secondly, she's saying, please let me go up to the hills and cry with my friends because I will die a virgin. Okay, if I knew I was going to die, I wouldn't be dying a virgin. We are reading the Bible. We are in Judges chapter 11. Okay, so if I knew I was going to die, I would not be saying, let me go up to the hills and weep because I'm going to die a virgin. I'd be like, I'm going to die in 2 months, so let's fix this because I don't want to die a virgin. And then she says, she went to the hills and wept because she would never have children. Okay, I love my children. I have 4 of them, and I'd be sad if I didn't have them. But you're missing a whole lot more there, honey, if you're just sad because you can't have kids. Like, the part to get to the kids is the fun part, not the having of the kids. The having of the kids is painful. So you're sad because you're going to die a virgin. But you went up to the hills and just cried about it instead of doing something about it. And then you came back and your dad literally killed you. He legit killed her. I don't think I would have been able to do it. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have been able to do it, but what? I don't understand. I don't understand this chapter. So now it's a custom for everyone to go away for 4 years to feel bad for her because she died a virgin. Okay. Chapter 12. I told you guys this is some interesting stuff. Then the tribe of Ephraim mobilized its army and crossed over to Zaphon. They sent this message to Jeff. Why didn't you call for us to help you fight against Ammon? We're going to burn down your house with you in it. What? The tribe of Ephraim mobilized its army. They're mad that he didn't call them for help. So because you didn't call us for help, we're going to burn down your house with you in it? I summoned you at the beginning of the dispute, but you refused to come, Jeff said. You failed to help us in our struggle against Ammon. So I risked my life and went to battle without you, and the Lord gave me victory over the Ammonites. So why have you come to fight me? The leaders of Ephraim responded, the men of Gilead are nothing more than rejects from Ephraim and Manasseh. The men of Gilead are nothing more than rejects. So literally this is like a fight in the cafeteria. This guy's like, you're not cool enough to sit at our table. You're just the rejects, and that's why we're here. So Jeff called his army and attacked the men of Ephraim and defeated them. How you like me now? He captured the shallows of Jordan, and whenever a fugitive from Ephraim tried to go back across, the men of Gilead would challenge him. Are you a member of the tribe of Ephraim? They would ask. And if the man said, no, I'm not, they would tell him to say, Shibboleth. Wait. Shibboleth. Shibboleth. Okay. Are you a man from Ephraim? No. Say Shibboleth. If he was from Ephraim, he would say Shibboleth. Oh. If he was from Ephraim, he would say Sibboleth. There's no H in that one. Because people from Ephraim cannot pronounce the word correctly. So they would take him and kill him at the shallows of the Jordan River. And 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. 42,000. They would say Shibboleth, because if they were from Ephraim, they would say Sibboleth, and then they would kill them. 42,000. Back in the day, the husband and kids were the thing to have. That's true, but I'm just saying, I would have been up in the hills having sex, and then I would have run. That would have been my plan. Dad, please let me go. I'm so sad. I can't die a virgin. Not a virgin, not dead. Because I would rather be a prostitute somewhere else than dead. I'm just saying. But maybe that's just me. And that's why I should not be reading this to you guys. Okay. So Jeff was Israel's judge for 6 years, and when he died, he was buried in Gilead. That's the end of that story. He killed all those people and then was judge for 6 years. After him, Isban became Israel's judge, and he lived in Bethlehem. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters, and he married his daughters to men outside his clan and brought in 30 young women from outside his clan to marry his sons. Well, that's good. He didn't make them marry each other. Then he judged for 7 years, and when he died, he was buried in Bethlehem. There's something about this 30. We've said before, like, it rained for 30 days and 30 nights. Like, 30 is a number. This guy had 30 sons and 30 daughters, and the guy that was in there before. Oh, hi, Jack. What you doing? Do you see him back there? His little butt. Hi, Jack. What are you doing? Where are you going? Did you come to hear us read? No? He's like, forget that, Mom. I don't want to hear you read. I just want to get on the couch. You can do it. Good boy. Jack's gotten so much bigger. He can walk. Oh, whoopsies. He can walk onto the couch now. Just kidding. I'm so sorry. This is why I should not be allowed to do this. You can't even see him now, though. All right. I gotta go soon. I gotta finish reading this. Okay, so 30 was important. After Elon died, Abdon, son of Hillel from Parathon, became the judge. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys, and he was the judge for 8 years. After he died, he was buried in Parathon at Ephraim in the hill country of the Amalekites. Cool. Chapter 13. I bet you guys can't guess. Again, the Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight. These people are so smart. So the Lord handed them over to the Philistines, who kept them in subjection for 40 years. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. These people are insane. And the dog just got down to move, like, he got off the couch to move over a foot. Okay. In those days, a man named Manoa from the tribe of Dan lived in the town of Zorah. His wife was unable to become pregnant, and they had no children. The angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and said, "Even though you've been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink or eat any forbidden fruit. You must become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut, for he'll be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth, and he will rescue Israel from the Philistines." The woman ran and told her husband, "A man of God appeared to me. He was like one of God's angels, terrifying to look at. I didn't ask where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he told me, 'You'll become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink or eat any forbidden food. Your son will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from the moment of his birth until the day of his death.'" Then Manoah prayed to the Lord, and he said, "Lord, let a man of God come back to us again and give us more instructions about the son." The guy's like, hold up. We need to talk to him again because I didn't get enough instructions on that situation. God answered his prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife as she was sitting in a field, but her husband was not with her. God's like, okay. So she quickly ran to her husband and said, "The man who appeared to me the other day is here again." He ran back with his wife and said, "Are you the man who talked to my wife the other day?" "Yes," he replied, "I am." So Manoah asked him, "When your words come true, what kind of rules should I govern the boy's life and work?" What kind of rules should govern the boy's life and work? The angel of the Lord replied, "Be sure your wife follows the instructions I gave her. She must not eat grapes or raisins, drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, or eat any forbidden food." Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please stay here until we can prepare a young goat for you to eat." "I will stay," the angel of the Lord replied, "but I will not eat anything. However, you may prepare a burnt offering as a sacrifice to the Lord." Manoah didn't realize it was an angel of the Lord. That's what it says. He didn't realize. So this random guy appears to your wife and tells you that she's going to get knocked up when she's never been able to before, and then disappears. She says he's frightening. You say, "Tell the Lord to send the guy back." And he does. But somehow you don't realize that he's an angel of the Lord. Okay. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? For when all this comes true, we want to honor you." "Why do you ask my name?" the angel of the Lord replied. "You wouldn't understand it if I told you." Then Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering and offered it on a rock as a sacrifice to the Lord. And as Manoah and his wife watched, the Lord did an amazing thing. As the flames from the altar shot up towards the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in fire. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell with their faces to the ground. He might be sure now. Excuse me. The angel did not appear again to Manoah and his wife, and Manoah finally realized it was an angel of the Lord. He fell with his face to the ground, and then he finally realized. He said to his wife, "We will die, for we've seen God." But his wife said, "If the Lord were going to kill us, we wouldn't have accepted our burnt offering and grain offering. He wouldn't have appeared to us and told us this wonderful thing and done these miracles." When her son was born, they named him Samson, and the Lord blessed him as he grew up. And in Mahanadan, which is located between Zorah and Eshtal, the Spirit of the Lord began to take hold of him. One day, this is 14, when Samson was in Timna, he noticed a certain Philistine woman. When he returned home, he told his father and his mother, "I want to marry a young Philistine woman I saw in Timna." He noticed her. He was like, "That one. I want to marry that one." His father and mother objected strenuously. "Isn't there a woman in our tribe or among all the Israelites you could marry? Why must you go find a pagan Philistine as a wife?" But Samson told his father, "Get her for me. She's the one I want." His father and mother didn't realize the Lord was at work in this, creating an opportunity to disrupt the Philistines who ruled over Israel at that time. As Samson and his parents were going down to Timna, a young lion attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timna. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord powerfully took control of him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. What? He ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. He did it as easily as if it were a young goat. Okay, first of all, he ripped the lion's jaws apart. Second of all, he did it as easily as a young goat. Who rips a goat's jaws apart? I don't think I would find that easy. Ripping a goat's jaws apart is not on the list of things that are easy for me to rip. Sometimes I can't even rip those Amazon package label things that come and they're like, here's the easy off, and you can't get to it. I can't even rip those, let alone a goat's mouth. But this guy rips a lion's jaws apart. That's crazy. The other day I realized that Jack has a bite force of like 750, which is insane, and it is close to that of a lion, and I can't imagine ripping his jaws apart if he was mad at me. False equivalency. I don't know what that means. Well, we are, so move on. Okay, I'm so sorry. I have not been reading this. The Bible is a collection of fairy tales. People say that to me all the time. False equivalency. I don't know what that means. But if you think it's a collection of fairy tales, you don't have to stick around. If you want to stick around, they're pretty good. People really do say that to me all the time. Okay, so, I'm sorry. We are back to ripping a lion's jaws apart. And he didn't tell his parents. He did not tell his father and mother about it. And when he arrived in Timna, he talked with the woman, and he was very pleased with her. Later, when he returned to Timna for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion. And he found that a swarm of bees had made some honey in the carcass. He scooped some of the honey into his hands and ate it along the way. And he gave some to his father and mother, and they ate it. But he didn't tell them that he took honey from the carcass of a lion. Okay, that's odd. He was like, "Hold on, Mom and Dad." And he like veered off and came back with honey. Like, what? That's crazy. "Here, guys, have some." "Where'd you get it?" "I don't know. I just found it by the side of the road." As his father was making final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party at Timna, as it was the custom of the day. 30 young men, from the town were invited to be his companions. And Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of celebration, I will give you 30 plain linen robes and 30 fancy robes." I feel like one of those books where you push the button and the thing says it. "But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 30 linen robes and 30 fancy robes." "All right," they said, "let's hear your riddle." So he said, "From the one who eats came something sweet. Out of the strong came something sweet." What kind of riddle is that? From the one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. From the one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. 3 days later, they were still trying to figure it out. And on the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, "Get the answer to the riddle from your husband, or we'll burn down your father's house with you in it." What is with these people? "Did you invite us to this party just to make us poor?" So Samson's wife came to him in tears and said, "You don't love me, you hate me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." "I haven't even given the answer to my father or mother," he replied. "Why should I tell you?" That is not a good way to start your marriage, bruh. Seriously? Why should I tell you? This is your wife. You should tell her everything. Not good. Not good. So she cried whenever she was with him and kept it up for the rest of the celebration. And on the 7th day, he told her the answer because of her persistent nagging. And then she gave the answer to the young men. Wow. Because of her persistent nagging. Okay. So before sunset on the 7th day, the men of town came to Samson with their answer. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Samson replied, if you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have found the answer to my riddle. Did he just call his wife a heifer? Then the Spirit of the Lord powerfully took control of him, and he went down into the town of Ashkelon, killing 30 men, taking their belongings and giving their clothing to the men who answered his riddle. But Samson was furious about what happened, and he went back home to live with his father and mother. So his wife was given in marriage to the man who had been Samson's best man at the wedding. Okay. We are reading chapter 14 of Judges in the Bible. Okay, so he sees a hot girl, and he's like, I want that one. Dad, give that one to me. Then at the wedding, he decides that he's going to give these people a riddle that's so complicated that they can't figure it out, because why would you think that it was honey and a lion? So these guys are all mad that they can't figure it out, and they're going to lose their robes. 30. So the wife comes, and is like, why haven't you told me the answer to the riddle? And he doesn't want to tell her. So she cries so much that she's recorded in the Bible as persistent nagging. He finally tells her, just so that she'll shut up, and she goes and tells the guys the answer. Then he's like, the cow that was my wife gave you the answer. I don't want her anymore. I'm going to go back home with my mom and dad. You can have her, and gives her to the best man. What the heck happened? That's crazy. Okay. Later on, during a wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat as a present to his wife. I didn't think he was with his wife anymore. I thought that his wife was married to the best man. He intended to sleep with her, but her father wouldn't let him in. I really thought you hated her, the father said, so I gave her in marriage to your best man. But look, her sister is more beautiful than she is. Marry her instead. Thanks, Dad. You're not supposed to have favorites. Samson said, this time I cannot be blamed for everything I'm going to do to you Philistines. So he went out and caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs and fastened a torch to each pair of tails. Then he lit the torches and let the foxes run through the fields of the Philistines. Oh, he did that when they were alive? He caught 300 foxes and tied their tails together. How did he not get bitten? And fastened a torch to each pair of tails and lit the torches, and all the foxes ran through the fields. So they literally burned all the grain to the ground, including the grain still in piles, and destroyed their grapevines and olive trees. Who did this? The Philistines demanded. Samson was the reply, because his father-in-law in Timna gave Samson's wife to his best man. So the Philistines went off and got the woman and her father and burned them to death. Religion's biggest trick isn't convincing people there's a God, it's convincing others you couldn't ridicule the idea. I have no idea where he found 300 foxes. That's a lot of foxes. Seriously, I thought the same thing. And how they were, I thought that it meant he killed them. Apparently not. Okay, I would like to know what's going to happen. But can you believe that they burned them? They have a thing for burning people. Where did that go? So they got the woman and father and burned them to death. Because you did this, Samson vowed, I will take my revenge on you, and I won't stop until I'm satisfied. He will never be satisfied. He will never be satisfied. Sorry, I freaking love Hamilton. Okay, so he attacked the Philistines with great fury and killed many of them. Then he went to live in a cave. The Philistines retaliated by setting up camp in Judah and raiding the town of Lehi. The men of Judah asked the Philistines, why have you attacked us? The Philistines replied, we've come to capture Samson. We've come to pay him back for what he did to us. So 3,000 men of Judah went down to get Samson at the cave, and they said to Samson, don't you realize the Philistines rule over us? What are you doing to us? But Samson replied, I only paid them back for what they did to me. The men of Judah told him, we've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. All right, Samson said, but promise that you won't kill me yourselves. We will tie you up and we will hand you over to the Philistines, they said. We won't kill you. So they tied him up with 2 new ropes, not old ones. They definitely got new ropes, and they led him away from the rock. When Samson arrived at Lehi, the Philistines came shouting in triumph. But the Spirit of the Lord powerfully took control of Samson, and he snapped the ropes on his arms as if they were burnt strands of flax, and they fell from his wrists. These were new ropes. Then he picked up a donkey's jawbone that was lying on the ground and killed 1,000 Philistines with it. A donkey's jawbone. They say, work with what you've got. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've made heaps on heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men. I've made heaps on heaps. When he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone, and the place was named Jawbone Hill. Now Samson was very thirsty, and he cried out to the Lord, "You've accomplished this great victory by the strength of your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of these pagan people?" So God caused water to gush out of a hollow in the ground at Lehi, and Samson was revived as he drank. Then he named the place the Spring of the One Who Cried Out, and it is still in Lehi to this day. Samson was Israel's judge for 20 years while the Philistines ruled the land. I love the way they name things. The Spring of One Who Cried Out. Right? Like, some of these stories are crazy. Kill someone with a jawbone. Rocks that talk. Like, insane. Okay, so now we're on chapter 16. It's the thing says Samson removes Gaza's gates. Did you guys see that thing that was going around for a while where the Rock couldn't get out of his place? I think he was in Los Angeles and he was late for a movie, couldn't get out, so he legit ripped the gates off of the wall. Have you seen that? Like, if you go look it up, there's a picture of the Rock and his like metal gates are all on the ground. He's like, I needed to leave and I couldn't get the gate open, so I just ripped it off. And that's what this little tagline reminded me of. So apparently Samson and the Rock have something in common. Let's read. One day, Samson went to the Philistine city of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. Word still spread that Samson was there, so the men of Gaza gathered together and waited at night at the city gates. They kept quiet during the night, saying to themselves, when the light of morning comes, we'll kill him. But Samson only stayed in bed until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the city gates with 2 posts, and lifted them, bar and all, right out of the ground. He put them on his shoulders and carried them all the way to the top of the hill across from Hebron. Later, that was it. That was the end of that story. Later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in the valley of Sorek. The leaders of the Philistines went to her and said, "Find out from Samson what makes him so strong so that he can be overpowered and tied up securely. Then each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me what makes you so strong. Tell me what it would take to tie you up securely." Samson replied, "If I'm tied up with 7 new bowstrings that have not yet been dried, I'll be as weak as anyone else." So the Philistine leaders brought Delilah 7 new bowstrings, and she tied Samson up with them. She'd hidden some men in one of the rooms of her house, and she cried out, "Samson, the Philistine men have come to capture you." But Samson snapped the bowstrings as if it were string that had been burned in a fire. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Afterwards, Delilah said to him, "You made fun of me and told me a lie. Now please tell me how you can be tied up securely." Samson replied, "If I'm tied up with brand new ropes that have never been used, I'll be as weak as anyone else." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him up with them. The men were hiding in the room as before. And again she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." But Samson snapped the rope from his arms as if they were thread. Then Delilah said, "You've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Won't you please tell me how you can be tied up securely?" Samson replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric on your loom and tighten it with the loom shuttle, I'll be as weak as anyone else." So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair into the fabric and tightened it with the loom shuttle. Again she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." Samson woke up, pulled back the loom shuttle, and yanked his hair away from the loom and the fabric. Then Delilah pouted. "How can you say you love me when you don't confide in me? You've made fun of me 3 times now, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong." So day after day she nagged him until he couldn't stand it any longer. That's his weakness. He can't stand it when a woman nags him, for crying out loud. And why would he still be with this girl? He's like, she's trying to figure out how to make you not strong. Why would you want to hang out with somebody like that? I don't get it. Finally, Samson told her his secret. "My hair has never been cut," he confessed, "for I was dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else." Delilah realized he finally told her the truth, so she sent for the Philistine leaders. "Come back one more time," she said, "for he's told me everything." So the Philistine leaders returned and brought the money with them. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with his head in her lap, and she called a man to shave his hair, making his capture certain. And his strength left him. Then she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." When he woke up, he thought, "I will do as before and shake myself free." But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes. Then they took him to Gaza, where he was found with bronze chains, bound with bronze chains, and made to grind grain in the prison. But before long, his hair began to grow back. That's so terrible. Maybe her gluck gluck game was on point. Maybe. That's terrible. I'm sorry. Okay. I should not have read that one out loud. The Philistine leaders held a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god, Dagon. They said, "Our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson." When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who has killed so many of us is now in our power." Half drunk by now, the people demanded, "Bring out Samson so he can perform for us." So he was brought from the prison and made to stand at the center of the temple, between the two pillars supporting the roof. Samson said to the servant who was leading him by the hand, "Place my hands against two pillars. I want to rest against them." The temple was completely filled with people, and all the Philistine leaders were there. There were about 3,000 on the roof who were watching Samson and making fun of him. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me again. O God, please strengthen me one more time so that I may pay back the Philistines for the loss of my eyes." Then Samson put his hands on the center pillar of the temple and pushed against them with all his might. "Let me die with the Philistines," he prayed, and the temple crashed down on the Philistine leaders and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives went down to get his body, and they took him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, where his father Manoa was buried. Samson had been Israel's judge for 20 years. That's crazy. He killed more people when he died than his entire lifetime, and he killed a ton of people with the jawbone of a donkey. All right, chapter 17. A man named Micah lived in the hill country of Ephraim, and one day he said to his mother, "I heard that you curse a thief who stole 1,100 pieces of silver from you. Well, here they are. I was the one who took them." "Oh, the Lord bless you for admitting it," his mother replied. He returned the money to her, and she said, "I now dedicate these silver coins to the Lord. In honor of my son, I will have an image carved and an idol cast." Oh, honey. So the mother took 200 of the silver coins to a silversmith, who made them into an image and an idol, and they were placed in Micah's house. Micah set up a shrine and made a sacred ephod and some household idols. Then he installed one of his sons as the priest. In those days, Israel had no king, so the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. One day, a young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah arrived in that area of Ephraim, looking for a good place to live. He happened to stop at Micah's house as he was traveling through. "Where are you from?" Micah asked him, and he replied, "I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I'm looking for a place to live." "Stay here with me," Micah said, "and you can be a father and a priest to me. I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year, plus a change of clothes and your food." The Levite agreed to this and became like one of Micah's sons. So Micah ordained the Levite as his personal priest, and he lived in Micah's house. "I know the Lord will bless me now," Micah said, "because I have a Levite serving as my priest." So he stole money from his mom. The mom took it back and said, "Good job telling me the truth," and made in honor of my son, I will have an image carved and an idol cast. So she made random idols, I don't think of God, and now they're worshiping them. Now in these days, Israel had no king, and the tribe of Dan was trying to find a place to settle, for they had not yet driven out the people who lived in the land assigned to them. So the men of Dan chose 5 warriors from among their clans who lived in the town of Zorah and Eshtaol to scout out land to settle in. When these warriors arrived in the hill country of Ephraim, they came to Micah's home and spent the night there. Noticing the young Levite's accent, they took him aside and asked, "Who brought you here, and what are you doing? Why are you here?" He told them his agreement with Micah and that he was Micah's personal priest. And they said, "Ask God whether or not our journey will be successful." "Go in peace," the priest replied, "for the Lord will be ahead of you on your journey." So I guess it was an idol to God. But that's weird that it's an idol cast, because it says that God only wants you to worship in the temple. So the 5 men went on to the town of Laish, where they noticed people living carefree lives like the Sidonians that were peaceful and secure. People were also wealthy because their land was very fertile, and they lived in a great distance from Sidon with no allies nearby. When the men returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their relatives asked them, "What did you find?" The men replied, "Let's attack. We've seen the land and it's very good. You should not hesitate to take possession of it. When you get there, you'll find the people living carefree lives. God has given us spacious and fertile land lacking in nothing." So 600 warriors from the tribe of Dan set out from Zorah and Eshtaol. They camped at a place west of Kiriath-Jearim in Judah, which is called Mahanahedan to this day. Then they went up to the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. The 5 men who scouted out the land around Laish said to the others, "There is a shrine here with a sacred ephod, some household idols, a carved image, and a cast idol. It's obvious what we ought to do." So the 5 men went over to Micah's house where the young Levite lived and greeted him kindly. As the 600 warriors of the tribe of Dan stood outside the gate, the 5 spies entered the shrine, took the carved image, the sacred ephod, the household idols, and the cast idols. When the priests saw the men carrying all the sacred objects out of Micah's shrine, they said, "What are you doing?" "Be quiet and come with us," they said. "Be a father and a priest to all of us. Isn't it better to be a priest for an entire tribe of Israel than just for a household of one man?" The young priest was quite happy to go with them, and he took along the sacred ephod, the household idols, and the carved image. They started on their way again, placing their children, livestock, and possessions in front of them. When the people of the tribe of Dan were quite a distance from Micah's home, Micah and some of the neighbors came chasing after them. They were shouting as they caught up with them, and the men of Dan turned around and said, "What do you want? Why have you called all these men together and chased after us?" "What do you mean, what do I want?" Micah replied. "You've taken away all of my gods and my priest. I have nothing left." The man of Dan said, "Watch what you say. Some of us are short-tempered, and they might get angry and kill you and your family." So the men of Dan went on their way, and when Micah saw there were too many of them for him to attack, he turned around and went home. Then with Micah's idols and his priests, the men of Dan came to the town of Laish, whose people were peaceful and secure. They attacked and killed all of them, and burned the town to the ground. Awesome. There was no one to rescue the residents of the town, for they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no allies nearby. This happened in the valley near Beth Rahab. When the people of the tribe of Dan rebuilt the town and lived there, they renamed the town Dan after their ancestor, Israel's son, but it had originally been called Laish. They set up the carved image, and they appointed Jonathan, son of Gershom, a descendant of Moses, to be their priest. The family continued as priest for the tribe of Dan until the exile, and Micah's carved image was worshipped by the tribe of Dan as long as the tabernacle of God remained at Shiloh. Okay, so that's why. So the tabernacle was somewhere else, so it was okay that they were worshipping that. I wasn't sure if they were making a false god or not, but it doesn't seem like it. Okay, so that was all of chapter 18. I saw a couple scriptures that mentioned women must cover their heads while praying. Can you tell me if I'm required as a woman to wear head covering while I pray? I think that might have been an Old Testament scripture. I don't really know. It kind of depends on what... I don't know. I don't wear a head covering when I pray, so I think based on the New Testament you don't have to, but I'm not sure. I don't think so. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for hanging out. It's been really fun. So that was a lot of crazy stories for today. I'm loving Judges way more than Numbers and Deuteronomy. So thank you so much for being here. It was awesome. And I hope that you have a fantastic Thursday and that you guys have a really great time doing whatever fun things you're doing. So my husband just came downstairs. It is time for me to go. I will see you next time. Have a great day.